Okay, lead tracking is easy. This is SEO Explained with CJ. I am the CEO of the SEO Contractor.com. So today I want to talk about lead tracking and how easy it is these days, but also how important it is. We have a lot of customers ourselves. All of them are hooked up on lead tracking. Yet many of them don't access the data, to look at it. And I understand, I mean, life is busy, business is busy, but what I want to, stress here is how important the lead tracking data is in many different ways. Not even just understanding the source of the lead, but what you can do with the information of that lead itself is really important. So I'll break down into specifics. It might almost sound like a sponsored ad because I'm going to be talking about a software that we use a lot. The software is not does not pay us or are sponsored for talking about them. We just use them. We love them, and they're our top choice. There's many softwares out there. So let's talk first about how easy lead tracking is, and let's just go back to the idea of no software, right? You know how many times I talk to people in an organization and they'll be like, "Oh, I had a great call. Someone called in, or got this new job." And the first thing I'll ask them, I was like, "Oh, did you ask them where they came from?" "Oh no, I forgot that." Talked for the half hour, an hour, everything about them, their business, or depending on who the customer is. Um, got the information they needed to provide the service for this customer, never even thought to ask, "Oh, how did you hear about us?" Right? Um, it kind of baffles me that that's not a question that people think often, especially when you're a business owner. I would think that the first thing you would want to know is, "Oh, how'd you hear about us? Where'd you come from?" And that is, look, that's 1 second. "How'd you hear about us?" I mean, and then, "Oh, I forgot. I saw your website," whatever. I mean, either way, they might not be so specific, but they'll get you something that'll help you. So, first off, without using a lead tracking software, at least ask your customers where they came from. You'll start hearing stuff. "Oh, I saw your website. Oh, I heard you down the street. Oh, a friend called. Oh, I saw you on social media." And these things are important because stuff will stick out as being more prominent than others. In other words, you'll realize, "Oh, I'm getting more referrals than I am this. Oh, I'm getting more traffic from my website than this, or I'm getting more stuff from my paid advertisement, et cetera, my billboard," whatever it is that your business is doing. But to have someone in your organization, or you yourself own the organization, talking to customers all day long and not even consider the first thing that you would want to know is, "How did you hear about us?" I do find interesting the knowledge that you could use from this information, or this information can go to so much, and I'm going to get into that in depth, right? So first off, lead tracking's super easy, even with software, even easier with software. But I mean, how easy is it to say, "How'd you hear about us?" So let's at least put that into our mentality, and start thinking about that. Okay. So let's talk about how we track leads for our customers and why that data is so important, and also how easy it is. There's a handful of, probably more than a handful, but there's a handful of really good software that's out there these days. CallRail, What Converts, a few others that for some reason aren't coming to the top of my head, but they're big players in the industry. We love What Converts. Whatconverts.com, great tracking software. We have implemented this and partnered with them into our business, and every one of our customers gets this. We have added it into our service list without changing the value of anything. In other words, everything we were doing before, we are still doing for the same price, but we've added this in, and it's huge. We should be charging extra for it. That's how important it is. Not even only for the software, but we actually manage it ourselves. So why is this so important? Okay. Well, first off, let's get to the easy component. What converts? Software. pay a small monthly fee, flip it on. Now you track every single source of all the leads that come to your website, and you can see transcripts and recordings through AI. You can know exactly the specifics of how they got there. You don't have to ask them, it tells you. And you can get reporting and you can compare all this report and you can mark these leads as quotable or not quotable. You can listen to your sales reps or your receptionists, your account managers, listen to these interactions, and you can, see what's going on with that data. I mean, why wouldn't you do something so easy? So the software again, whatconverts.com. It's a monthly fee. You flip it on, you tie it in, you pay attention. Now you have data. So we do this for our customers. A lot of other SEO companies do similar stuff. Some have their own proprietary software. Some, use different versions of software. You know, it's weird how a lot of SEO companies don't even do this. They haven't even come across this or implemented this into their business, which they should. So make sure you're whoever you choose as a marketing company, SEO company, marketing company, anyone who's doing lead, driving leads to your business is tracking them through some form of recording call tracking software. So why is this important? Again, I've seen businesses that have call tracking, but the tracking itself doesn't go super in depth on the source. The reason why we got What Converts was that we would run pay-per-click campaigns, for instance, and we'd be able to tell easily, oh, these calls came from these pay-per-click campaigns because Google provides, that kind of information on the back of their ad software, and others do this as well. But the most difficult thing was if someone did an organic search, they went to Google, they typed, electrician near me, clicked your website, played around on the website, and then placed a phone call from the website. It was almost impossible for us to say that these calls from your website came from someone who did an organic search. So now what we can do with What Converts from the website standpoint is actually track where all the sources come from. So if someone's on a web page and they click to your web page, then we know the source that they came from another web page. If they go into your Google map and click website, and now they're on your website and then they call, we know that that website click came from the map. If they're doing a pay-per-click and they click an ad and then now they're on your website and then they call, we know that that call came from the ad. If they do an organic search, if they're on Facebook, then they click the website button from your Facebook. So basically, when people are anywhere on the internet and they somehow stumble across your website, whether it's through a search, through clicking a map, a directory listing, a social media, on a social media site that then clicked to your website, went there directly, just typed www.your domain.com. We know when they make a call from that website or send an email through the form on that website, that the source of how they got to that website, that is massive information. Because now you can look and you can say, okay, I got, just random number, 1,000 visitors to my website this past month. 250 of them are from the map, 250 are from organic search, 250 went directly there by typing www. 250 came from a paid ad, right? And in that case, it sounds like every bit of your marketing is working pretty equal, 25% across the board. Again, random numbers. But you see how now we can discover the source of marketing that drove to the website in particular. And then we can start seeing which sources of these marketing is actually producing more. Maybe the clicks from the ads are driving less traffic. Maybe they're driving more traffic, right? But then the organic is driving its percentage of traffic as well. But we can track which of these leads are actually quality leads in the What Converts program. So now maybe the paid ads is getting more traffic than the organic, but the organic is producing a better quality lead. This is often actually the case where the paid advertisement drives more but less quality, and the organic might drive less but more quality. Huge things to know. It's not always about how many leads you get, but also how many of those leads are actually a quality, quotable lead. Now, with great programs like What Converts, you can even extend off of the website, and track anywhere that you want to track. If you're doing a direct mailed postcard campaign, if you're doing a billboard, if you're wrapping vehicles, if you're putting yard signs out there, if you're going to events, if you're doing radio, if you're doing TV, you get the point. Advertising. You can use different numbers and methods to forms, numbers to track these different sources. So now you've got one place like What Converts that can tell you the source of all your leads based on how you are tracking those marketing campaigns. Then you can listen to these calls and mark whether they are a quality quotable lead. And then now you know which forms of marketing not only are driving in the highest volume or lowest volume, which ones are also bringing the highest quality or lowest quality. And then you can use this information to decide how to push and pull your marketing. So there's a lot of companies out there that don't look in these tools. Even if they have these tools in place, they don't look at them like, oh, yeah, we're using a marketing company. They track our leads. I get that all the time. Yeah, why should I come with you? Well, we do this. Oh, well, we're using another company and they track our leads. They don't even look at the leads. So it's like not even, it's like value to them anyway. So whenever I try to paint the value of how important lead tracking is, whether you're working with our company or not, it's funny how this isn't one of the most valuable things in their business when, in my opinion, it should be one of the most valuable tools in your toolbox, for other reasons as well, which I'll get to in just a moment. So first off, whatever you're doing, whether it's no marketing company, you're working with no marketing company, or you're working with a marketing company, go to What Converts, get the software yourself if you're not using any marketing company. If you are using a marketing company, make sure they're using some form of tracking software. Um, Again, we like What Converts because of all the reasons stated. There's other ones out there, but make sure you're working with a marketing company who's tracking, listening to your calls and form submissions, and being able to use that information to help drive better ROI in your marketing. If you're not working with a marketing company, then flip that on yourself and do it. If you're not ready to do that, ask where this stuff is coming from. At least do that. I know there's a lot of people out there who maybe have small businesses. Say, "Oh, my business comes from referrals," and they may be right. Um, but it is funny to me how many people think they know everything about every one of their customers when they're really not even asking or diving deep. They just kind of making an assumption. And there's plenty of you out there who assume that you know every single lead that's in your business and where it came from. But do you really know how it got there? Do you know how many of the people that maybe was a referral who went to your website and used your website as a tool to build trust in your business? So yeah, maybe it was a referral, but was it going to actually close if they didn't say go to the website? Or vice versa, how many people started looking at your social media, started building trust, going to your website, asked a friend. These components all work together. So when you can track the source and know exactly where it came from, and you can say, hey, not only did I know that this came from my website, I also know that it came from a specific page on my website. So now the data is even more in depth, where it's like, not only did so and so tell you about us and then you searched us and then you made it to this page on the website, and this page itself was one that can help convert you. This is again valuable information. So, how else can this information be used? What else can you do with this data? The ability to listen to your team on a call, represent your company, the ability to listen to yourself, right? You're a sales rep, you're a business owner. Every business owner is a sales rep, whether they want to be or not. And many of you, because I know myself, don't love to listen to myself on sales calls, or necessarily do listen to my sales calls to track myself and my own performance. You know, most business owners aren't listening to their own calls to track their own performance, um, let alone even listening to their team's calls, their reception, their sales, their account managers' calls to track their performance. Well, we listen to all of our customers' calls, and we can catch a lot. There's many times when someone representing your business is actually losing the sale for you. We drove a quality lead, but then the person who answered the phone, whether it's through lack of knowledge, through lack of motivation, through rudeness, or just tone, um, loses the sale, and we have to call the owner and say, "Hey, this customer was asking for this service that you guys offer, but your reception or your person answering the phone said that they don't think you offer it." And then now, we've gotten that information to the owner, and they've got some further training to do. Not everyone who answers the phone is like being, you know, not being a great employee or representation of the team on purpose. Sometimes it's literally lack of training, or not understanding something about a business that they could easily learn and do better. Like, or just how they talk. I remember once someone called one of our customers and asking if they do like generators. They're an electrician, and the person on the phone was like, "Yeah, but we don't really do that many of them." Well, there's no confidence in that. So the customer is not going to want to go with someone who doesn't do many of what you're offering when you kind of speak it that way, right? So the business owner wants to do many generators. That's the goal, to do a lot of generator sales. Um, so it's all in the approach of, the person answering the phone, and they answer the phone and like, well, we don't do that many. Um, but if they really knew that the customer, that their boss or the owner, really wants to push this service, and they really work together to teach them on how to sell this service, then that call would have, went a whole different way. We also can tell when people don't answer the calls. So it's so funny. It's so funny how many people come to us and say, "I want more leads." And then we look, they don't even answer like 25% of the leads that we do come. So, like, what's the point of us continuing to drive more leads if you're not even answering the phone, right? So is the problem really that you need more leads, or is it an internal problem? We've heard people be rude on the phone to customers. We've heard people say that they don't offer services to someone in a location where maybe it's a little farther than they thought they do, but the owner wants to go there. He'll take that job. So there is this whole thing to lead tracking that is way beyond just understanding the source of where the lead comes from, but it's also being able to sell the service, sell the business, sell the brand, sell the product, and being able to use this as a training tool, or a tool to understand the shortcomings of the business that could help it convert more leads into sales. The whole point of tracking leads is to know, where's my lead coming from, so that I can make sure to put the right amount of money into the right marketing that's pulling in the leads for ROI. And then when those leads get to me, what's my close rate? What's my sales rate? And is there room for training within myself, my team? Lack of knowledge, lack of, ability, lack of values, wrong person in the, wrong person in the wrong seat. So that's why this stuff's more so important. And it just, again, baffles me how many people we work with who have access to this information and don't use it. If you are super busy, then that is completely understandable why you might not take time to do this. But super busy doesn't mean that this information can't be used to grow the business even more. Obviously, if you're super busy, there's probably some operational challenges that you're facing that need to be implemented as well, so that you have the ability to, work on the business and not be stuck behind in the business. That's a challenge that obviously, busy is good. You want to be busy and rather than not busy. But there's often times where people within the organization can be tasked with this job as well. It doesn't always have to fall onto the owner, for instance. Um, it could fall onto someone else. So make sure that someone in your organization is responsible for understanding the sources of the leads, which sources are producing the best volume, but also the highest quality, most importantly, the highest quality. And then make sure that someone in the organization is tasked with understanding how these leads are being converted, and our close rates, could our close rates improve through training and the right people on the team. So if you run a business and you're like, oh, I get all my business from referrals and I don't even, really need to ask people because I know where they're all coming from, consider that there's things within your business that you might not fully understand, that if you did learn, put your eyes and attention on a little more through a tracking service, maybe that could help improve. And then if you're a big business, then there's probably so much waste that you're spending on. Big businesses spend so much on waste, and within that waste, I'm sure there's training and marketing expenses that could be trimmed down by realizing which ones aren't driving but have high budgets. And so you can trim the fat. A big business can trim the fat through lead tracking by cutting expenses that aren't pulling in big ROIs. And then a big business can also trim the fat with their teams by either getting the wrong people out of there or training the better training to get higher conversions. Really any size business can do any of this stuff. All this works for any size business, but you'll find that the big businesses have a lot of bloat and a lot of team members who don't have as much attention on them as they should. And then smaller companies, the few employees that do exist aren't putting the attention on understanding lead sources to begin with, or even asking where that came from. So use a program like What Converts. If your marketing department or company is already using a program like What Converts, then maximize what that program's capable of. Dive deeper into it. And if you're too busy to do so, then consider looking at some operational pain points that you need to work yourself through as well. So lead tracking is easy, even if you go as to the root of it and say, how did you hear about us? But more so, there's some great softwares out there with AI functionality that can tell you so much detail so instantly, so easily, that it's not as hard as you might think to know all this information. It's actually quite easy. So if you even just take a small amount of time per month to go over this data, it doesn't have to be something that takes up a lot of your time, but the information that you can get out of it can really be pushed to make sure you drive more leads, more quality leads, cut expenses, and train teams to give you higher conversion and close rates. So I hope you enjoyed this week of SEO Explained. Lead tracking is easy. So do it.